Sweet home, Santa Barbara, where the skies are so blue. Sweet home, Santa Barbara, what's worked for me can work for you.
Well, welcome back, listeners, to Sweet Home Santa Barbara. I'm your co-host, Jonathan Robinson, and with my friend and realtor,
Scott Williams. Hi there, Jonathan.
Hi, Scott, and welcome to all our listeners learning about how they can sell their house for maximum profit. And, in some previous episodes, Scott, we talked about a lot of things that people could do for pretty little money that have a big return on investment and really maximize profit. But I'm wondering if there's other things that people should know about to help them be able to sell their house rather quickly.
Good question, Jonathan. When we take a look at a house as we get ready to market it, oftentimes we discover things about that home that might be a negative to a buyer. So we need to talk a little bit about how to deal with these things.
When you say a negative to a buyer, like what type of thing are you referring to?
Well, the seller may be thinking, my sewer line is really kind of old, or my roof had a leak last year in it, and I think it's okay, but I know it's getting really old. We need to talk about those kind of things.
Yeah, so these are like mechanical systems of the house that most people are thinking, they should be okay. And if they're not, that's a problem.
Yeah, if you're buying a house and you found out the roof, the sewer, the foundation, the house is a little bit out of level, these are the sort of things why a buyer might say, pass.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to buy this one.
Right. Well, let's talk about the roof. A roof is a very expensive commodity. What do people do if they have an old roof?
Well, we want to know the condition as we go for sale. And if we find out from a roofer that this is near the end of its useful life, we have a discussion about whether or not we can pass this along to the buyer. In the current market, we can. The buyer will accept a roof that is at the end of its useful life. So the market conditions will be really teaching us about whether or not we can go forward. But if we go to some other time when it's a little more balanced between buyers and sellers, this is an issue. And this is an issue that might prevent a home from being sold.
Mm-hmm. And I know that having just replaced my roof, that there's different roofing options, some expensive, some less expensive. And that's something that you can discuss with potential sellers as well.
Yeah, there's options, there's different sets of costs. We're going to be evaluating these things, but the seller is used to, in the conversation, and it's the same one we've been having right here. Oh, aren't I going to make 200% or 800% profit on this $15,000 or $50,000 that I'm spending on my roof? And the answer is probably not. But we have this friction if the marketplace is, giving a little bit more power to the buyer, that prevents the buyer from even buying the house. So we may want to do some of these things just in order to have a successful sale, even though it's not a big money maker.
Yeah, depending on the market conditions at that time. Other than roof, what about the sewer?
Sewer is the same thing. I don't usually recommend that a seller have the sewer line examined by a video camera, but I do recommend to a buyer that they should get a video camera down there, because it's $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $35,000, depends on how long it is and what condition it's in. So a buyer should always examine this. But for a seller, we wait for a buyer to do that. But I caution them, we may have a discussion that's got some big money on it.
How much does it cost a buyer to do that?
Oh, $250, $300. It's minor cost.
Right. Pretty important to do. And how about the whole drainage system of the house?
Well, if a house is on a hillside, like I know your home's on a hillside, many homes in Santa Barbara are on hillsides, the water that's coming downhill above your home towards your home, where does all that water go when it's raining like mad? May we have lots more rain, of course, let me put that in there. But if the water is like sliding under the house or is causing difficulty to the downstairs of the home or the sub area, all of these are the sort of things that a buyer doesn't want. And you may, again, have to deal with these things in order to successfully sell your house. If you need to decide ahead of time whether you're willing to do them or not.
So you're saying most people do not want a big river under their house.
Nor do they want a pond, nor a lake.
Okay. And the ocean's nearby, so they don't need that either. Okay. How about the foundation?
Foundation is one of those things that a buyer just simply has an expectation that they'll be in good shape. And if they get the inkling that the house is not quite level, we actually have a rule of thumb about this. It's kind of interesting. I've noticed over the years that we'll all tolerate a little bit off in a house. In fact, builders tell me that if a house is within 1 inch of flat across the whole house, that's considered good level building. And I have found that most people are okay up to about 2 inches, but there's a pretty strong line at about 2 inches where the buyer says, I don't think I want to live with this. This, like, the doors don't close and cabinets fly open, and they just think, I want the seller to fix this. So that's become an issue. At 2 inches, it's an issue that a seller undoubtedly is going to have to deal with. And plenty of buyers are going to start to say, I don't want it.
How do people find, both buyers and sellers, find out the condition of the foundation that way?
Well, you usually know there'll be cracks in your walls and your doors won't close and your windows stick, and you have a lot of indications that something is amiss. And if you're a homeowner, you probably know that.
Uh-huh. And if you drop something and you notice that it goes quickly down to one side of the house, then that's a clue as well.
Yeah, a marble can tell you if a house is really off. That's all you need.
Right.
Or you just sort of, you feel like you're walking downhill. Sellers sometimes say, I hope they don't discover that, although the seller knows full well that his house is slightly sloping downhill.
Yeah.
We're in the land of disclosures, and we will have to talk about these things. We can't just pass them by.
Uh-huh. Okay. And how about mechanical systems in the house?
Okay. Then, like the heater, a buyer has an expectation that the heater is going to work. If the heater doesn't work, you will not make money on putting a new heater in, but you don't lose the buyer either. Some banks, for instance, will not fund a loan if the bankers know of some of these issues. If it doesn't have a heater, or the house, it's out of level, or, there's problems with the foundation or sewer lines. If you tell the banker, they'll say, we won't make a loan. So, we have to deal with these one way or another.
Mm-hmm. How about air conditioning? Do most houses in Santa Barbara have air conditioning?
About 25% of them have air conditioning, and more people are putting them in. We're in the age of heated air. So we see it more often. I think the important thing is that if you're dealing with friction item, these are all friction items with a buyer, we need to discuss them. Are they likely to actually stop the sale? And then we have to sort of look at how good is the market. And if the market is like it is right now, super hot, we can just disclose all these items and pass them along and we'll be fine. But as soon as we revert to a little bit more normal market, we go back to this as a serious discussion with the seller of, might we need to fix a few of these things, or we're just going to lose 20 or 50 or 80% of our buyers to these issues.
Mm-hmm. And the good news is when markets do get cooler, you're an expert in working with all these issues. You certainly did that with my house, and a seller can be really not hardly involved at all because you have a crew that can help with that.
That's true. And as a seller is listening to this, we know that we have buyers listening to the podcast as well. And I'm sure they're perking up and think, wow, I should probably investigate all these things before I buy a house. And when we get to some of the sessions where we talk about buyers, that will absolutely be very clear that a buyer should be paying attention here.
Right. Well, it's great stuff to know about all these things that are really part of expectations for how to make sure your house is basically sellable to most people because people expect these things to be in some basic working order. Any last words on all these different systems?
Well, the good news is if you have something that like a roof that needs to be fixed and you say, I don't want to fix it, and it's, $22,000 or whatever the number happens to be, we know we're going to end up doing a reduction of the price of the house, and then it'll sell. But we will have to deal with that.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's nice that you offer a service where you can even potentially reduce your fee if you're just working on selling the house right away, or a more normal fee if you are helping to really fix up the house and spending a lot of energy doing that. Nice to have that.
The fees are oftentimes based upon how much work needs to go into the project.
Right. Great. Well, that's a lot of good information for people. How do people get hold of you?
The name is Scott Williams, and the email is scott@scottwilliams.com.
And thanks for listening to Sweet Home Santa Barbara. If you know someone who is selling their home, have them listen to this podcast. You'll be doing them a favor. Till our next episode, enjoy Santa Barbara.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite app. If you know someone preparing to sell their home, please tell them about the podcast. Visit scottwilliams.com to contact me and download the 2 free e-booklets, Is My House Saleable Now? And How Not to Buy a Money Pit. Thank you for listening.